Hello, welcome to part 2 of the video. In case you didn't catch part 1, go watch that. Okay, so what we are doing is I am going through the entire plot of Percy Jackson and the Lightning Thief. I got the inspiration for this video from Carrie Can Read when she did her video on ACOTAR, and I just thought this was really fun. I really enjoyed making this video. This is actually 2 minutes after I ended part 1, so it's probably a few days for you, maybe not. But yeah, I'm releasing it in 2 parts. But yeah, so we left at chapter 11, so now we will start chapter 12. Chapter 12, we get advice from a poodle. Now, after Auntie M's Emporium and all that happened, they are back in the woods, the forest, our trio, Annabeth, Percy, Grover. They are back in the forest, and they spend the night there. So they have this conversation. Percy decides to take first watch, but then Grover's actually the one who takes first watch. Grover's the one who actually takes first watch because he cannot sleep. Percy and Annabeth falls asleep as soon as her head hits the ground, which is like, she was exhausted. So Percy and Grover actually have this conversation, and where they're sleeping, it looks like a party ground where like teenagers might go to party. So Grover kind of like mentions like, this makes me so mad, and Percy's like, what? And Grover's like, the way humans have ruined the earth, you know, and then Grover actually explains to Percy about like the god of the wild Pan, and how many satyrs they go on a quest to find Pan, because Pan went missing 2,000 years ago, said to be dead, but satyrs don't believe that. They cannot believe that. So they have this conversation about Pan and how Grover wants to get his searcher's license to find Pan, but also because his father was a searcher and his uncle Ferdinand was a searcher, but also no satyr has ever returned from this search to find Pan. So yeah, that's kind of sad. So after this conversation, they kind of get to the topic of like, Percy asks Grover if Annabeth was actually part of his first chance, his first failed mission to get a demigod to camp, and Grover doesn't answer the question, kind of avoids it. So Percy goes to sleep, and Grover takes Percy's watch. Percy has another nightmare in which there's like this evil sounding voice talking to him. And it's like, there's this pit, a dark pit, and it's kind of like calling to him. But Percy describes it as like, instead of like the pit pulling him in, it's almost like the voice in the pit is trying to use Percy to pull himself out. So that doesn't sound good. But Percy wakes up to Annabeth waking him up, and Grover's talking to a pink poodle. This is where Percy learns that Grover can talk to animals, and Grover tells Percy that this poodle is named Gladiolus, and he has run away from home, but it's like a rich home, so there's a $200 reward out for Gladiolus. And Gladiolus is willing to help these 3 by going home so they can collect the reward money. Also, there's also this whole like part of like Percy not wanting to say hello to Gladiolus, and Annabeth and were like, Percy, say hello to the poodle. So that is actually the end of chapter 12, if I'm not wrong. Like, they return Gladiolus and they get money. I'm gonna end up breaking my wand with the amount of times I've dropped it. That would be bad. But yeah, so that's the end of chapter 12. On to the next. Chapter 13, I plunge to my death. So, using the money they got from returning Gladiolus, the puppy, the dog, the pink poodle, they were able to get train tickets, but only up to Denver. Now, I'm not from America, I don't really know like their distances and all that, but you know, so they were only able to get to train tickets to Denver, and that is like all their money. And they were only able to get seats, not even like seats with like beds and stuff. So those 2 days in the train, they kind of like Percy and Annabeth get to talking. So Annabeth actually tells Percy a little bit about like her father and how like he'd like attracted like Athena in like when he was in Harvard, and then after, so because like Athena pops children out of her head. Do we know that yet? I don't know. But Athena pops children out of her head. So Annabeth was actually delivered to her father through Zephyr the Wind God, I think. And her father thought it was very inconvenient. He also later got married to a mortal woman and had 2 children of his own with her. And so Annabeth was always kind of like just a problem for them, and Annabeth was always just kind of a problem for them. Like she attracted the monsters and it was all hard, and also her stepmother never let her play with her 2 step siblings because she just thought it was like dangerous and stuff, which it was really hard for her. So she ran away when she was 7. At least she made her way to Camp Half-Blood. So the conversation comes up about like if like why they don't get along, and it's like because Athena and Poseidon don't get along, and Percy asks them, but it's like they're not like a single moment in history when they got along. And Annabeth kind of mentions like the chariot, where Athena made the chariot, but horses came from Poseidon, and so it was like a team effort for chariots, which is great. So Percy was like, if they can do that, we can get along too, which is kind of a small bonding moment, which is lovely. So Annabeth also tells Percy about like wanting to become an architect and all like the so they actually have a 3-hour like layover before Denver, and it's actually wherever the Gateway Arch is. I don't know where the Gateway Arch is, so wherever the Gateway Arch is where they have their 3-hour layover. So Annabeth is like, come on, we're gonna go see the Gateway Arch. And so they go. Percy is kind of like, should we be doing this, you know, dangerous and monsters and all that, but Annabeth seems really excited about it. So they get to the Gateway Arch, and Percy asks Grover if like he sniffs any monsters, and Grover's like, I cannot tell because we are underground. Underground always smells like monsters. Yeah, so they're doing that. So they Annabeth wants to go to like the observation deck on the in the arch. So they take a lift, and in the lift there is this lady that Percy describes as fat. There's this lady and her little chihuahua, and she also kind of like mentions their parents, like, people are here all alone, and the 3 of them are like, no, our parents are downstairs. She's like, okay. So they get up to the observation deck, and they kind of see, and when it's time to go back down, Percy, Annabeth, and Grover, they go to the lift, but only Grover and Annabeth fit in the lift because there are already other people there. And so Percy's like, don't worry about me, I'll take the next lift. Because even moving around, like, them coming out, it would be too much hassle and it would waste a bunch of time. So Percy's like, I'm fine, I'll take the next lift. So Percy's there, and in the observation deck there's like I think a guide. I'm not sure about that. And then there's a family with like a son, and then there's the fat lady with the chihuahua. I think the fat lady, the chihuahua, she has a conversation with Percy or something, and then her chihuahua turns into a chimera, with the lion head and snake tail and just that, so the Chihuahua is actually Chimera, and the fat lady is Echidna, mother of monsters, and so Percy is in trouble because he is there alone. The Chimera kind of like blasts at Percy. It kind of actually blasts a hole in the wall of the gateway arch. And fighting. Percy's kind of worried about the other people on the deck because, the Chimera is after him. So if he kind of like could leave, it might protect them. So Percy decides to actually fall out of the hole. He falls. I don't think he jumps. He falls out of the hole that was blessed. So there is water by the arch. This is actually a funny part. So Uncle Rick actually, when writing the book, thought that the water, I think the Mississippi River it is, the Mississippi River, he thought that it was closer to the gateway arch, but it wasn't. So Percy's supposed to like fall into the Mississippi River, but he would land on concrete, I think. Anyways, so Percy falls, and that is the end of chapter 13. We are now on chapter 14. Chapter 14, I become a known fugitive. Before falling, Percy's like, I don't know if I can survive this fall, but so he prays to his father, I think. He prays to, and he survives the fall. He does not splat on the water as if it was hard as concrete. And he also learns he can breathe underwater and it's completely dry. Isn't that nice? I personally hate soggy clothes, which is also why I don't play in the rain anymore. I just hate the feeling of the wet clothes. But, it's still fun, so I try to sometimes. Anyways, so underneath the water, Percy finds Riptide. I forgot to mention that. Fighting with the Chimera, he actually lost his sword, and which is why he decided it would be better to fall. Because actually Riptide didn't actually return to his pocket this time. I don't know if he just didn't wait long enough or whatever. So he finds Riptide in the ground at the bottom of the river. Hooray. Okay, so there is this water spirit underneath the water who tells Percy she cannot stay for very long because of how dirty the Mississippi River is. So this is a Nereid, a water spirit. And she tells Percy that his father wants to talk to him and wants to meet him at the Santa Monica beach. She tells Percy that Poseidon has something to tell him at the Santa Monica beach. He needs to meet him there. After that interaction, once the Nereid leaves, tells him right before disappearing to not trust the gifts, which he never gets to finish a sentence or something, which was like, okay, lady. Anyways, so once he's out of the water, the whole around the arch is surrounded by emergency vehicles and police vehicles and news vehicles. So Percy is kind of he's looking around for Annabeth and Grover, and he overhears a news reporter saying that a 12-year-old boy was seen I think blasting through the thingy, and so they're blaming Percy for the explosion. He is now a wanted fugitive, hence the name of the chapter. He catches up with Annabeth and Grover, and he tells them about his how the fat lady and the Chihuahua were a chimera, and so he also tells them about his conversation with the water spirit, and so Grover's like, we have to go there. You cannot ignore a summon from a god. And so they decide to go to the that they must like side quest to the Santa Monica Beach. And that is the end of chapter 14 of this show. Chapter 15, a god buys us cheeseburgers. So after that whole Gateway Arch fiasco, the trio gets back on the train and they make it to Denver. And once in Denver, they decide that they should probably like IM back to camp. And Percy says, IM. And they're like, iris message. And so iris messaging is communicating through the rainbow, which you offer a gold drachma to the goddess Iris, goddess of the rainbow, and if she accepts your offering, you can talk to people through the rainbow. But they find a car wash, and in the car wash they in the like do it yourself section. They pay for the sprinkle. The water sprinkles. They form a rainbow. They throw a drachma in. Oh, Iris, goddess of the rainbow, accept. It's called something, and then they call Camp Half-Blood. But instead of, they wanted to tell Chiron everything that had happened so far, but instead of getting Chiron, he got Luke. So Luke was standing up facing them, so Annabeth obviously started like adjusting her hair and everything. And so he turns around and like, oh, Luke, and Luke kind of asks, how are you guys? Chiron isn't here right now, he's dealing with trouble in the trouble with the cabins. So Luke kind of like so they're talking to Luke. So a car drives into the car wash and it's blasting extremely loud music to the point where the floor is vibrating and it's messing with their call. So Annabeth and Grover decide to skedaddle and confront like and kind of like tell the go to tell the guy to shut it, to put it nicely. But yeah, so Percy and Luke are left to talk, and Luke kind of tells Percy about the situation at camp, how word got out about the fight between Poseidon and Zeus, and how if a war is coming, the cabin started like deciding to take sides, and it was kind of like not great. Half the cabins were taking like Poseidon's side, and some of them were taking like Zeus's side. So Percy also tells Luke about what's gone on with their quest, and so the call's about to end because the water thingy it beeps about like there's 1 minute left of like, you people getting water. So as the call's ending, Luke tells Percy to tell Grover that it'll be better this time. Nobody's going to get turned into a pine tree. If he just. Nobody's going to get turned into a pine tree if he just. And then the Iris message ends. So Grover and Annabeth come back from talking to the guy who had at this point like turned the off of them. They're like, calls ended, and also in the call, Luke refers to like Annabeth as like he trusts her like a lot, and he thinks of her as a sister. Also, it's supposed to, I should probably tell the reason this part of the conversation comes up because they're talking about like who would have stolen the lightning bolt, and Luke's telling Percy that like somebody would have to be invisible, and Percy, Annabeth has an invisibility cap, and Luke kind of sees this like, and so Luke's like, I trust Annabeth completely fully. She's like a sister to me. And then after this happens, they leave, and the trio goes to a diner for food, and this guy shows up. The waitress asks them like, "Can you people pay?" And this guy, before they can answer, this guy shows up and he's like, "It's on me." This guy is described as like big, scary, leather jacket, motorcycle, sunglasses. Aries. This is where we meet Aries. Percy also tells us that just being in his presence makes him angry. But yeah, so Aries is kind of like to the waitress, like, it's on me, why are you still here? Go get food. But yeah, so Aries decides to give the trio, wait, the trio, a side quest, and he tells them that I can help you people on your quest. I just need you to do something for me, and he needs them. He needs them to get his shield back. So what we find out. So Percy's reluctant, but he agrees. Also, Percy like really hates Aries. It's like beef. He's got beef with him. I don't like saying beef. Anyway, Percy really doesn't like Aries. He almost says that we're not going to do anything for you, but Grover stops him. So what they need to do is they need to go to this water park where Aries' shield is. They get to the water park. So his shield is at the bottom of the pool in a ride in this park called Tunnel of Love. Obviously, Aries had been there on a date with his girlfriend, Aphrodite. He's like, oh, this is easy. Him and Annabeth go to the bottom of the pool, pick the shield up. It was a trap. So the tripwire goes off, and over the pool, from what I could understand, this kind of confusing. From what I could understand, like a net started forming on top of the pool, kind of like trapping them inside, and Grover was at the top of the pool. Grover was at the top of the pool, and he kind of like he's kind of like trying to like leave a gap open for them to get out. But like, and then inside the pool, spiders start coming out, which completely freaks Annabeth out. Which Percy thinks is like so unlike her. He's never seen her like this, but yeah. So these spiders are like they're mechanical spiders, and obviously from this we find out that like it's Hephaestus has set a trap because Hephaestus is actually married to Aphrodite and Aries are like going out, and so Hephaestus likes to catch them together to humiliate them. So that's why Aries didn't get the shield himself, because it was a trap. We don't like Aries. Okay, we don't like him. So there's also Hephaestus also has cameras set up around. So in a few minutes, it's gonna start like broadcasting to Olympus. So the gods are gonna see Percy and Annabeth struggling as they are. So Percy kind of like him and Annabeth get in a boat that's in the ride, and he kind of like summons water, using his Sidon powers, his Percy powers. He is able to summon water that kind of floats the boat. They get out of the pool, but they're heading towards a closed gate, and on impact, they would explode and die. So him and Annabeth, they kind of like jump out and at the very last minute, but they miscalculated the trajectory, and they're kind of not gonna land. They're gonna land on concrete, but Grover with his shoes is able to like kind of catch them, but they still crash. But they didn't die, they didn't go splat. Also, they have the shield. Percy is really angry at Aries for tricking them. He hates people who bully and trick, and so he's really, really mad at Aries now for tricking them into this trap. Yeah, and that is the end of chapter 15. Chapter 16, we take a zebra to Vegas. So the trio with Aries' shield, they go back to the diner, and Aries is waiting for them there in the parking lot. Percy is mad at him, of course, for tricking them. I think Aries finds it amusing, but then Percy actually insults him, and they just have a little rivalry going on, these two, Aries and Percy. Yeah, but Annabeth warns him to not make him too mad. You don't want the god as your enemy. So the help that Ares offered was giving them a backpack with some money, fresh clothes, drachmas in there. And the transport that he has offered is actually at the back of an animal transport truck. Yeah. And then the one piece of advice that the information that he gave Percy about Percy's mother, is that his mother's actually alive. You heard that right. Sally Jackson is alive, and she's alive in the underworld. Yeah. So we get that. So after Ares leaves, the three of them. Annabeth, Percy, and Grover, they get into the back of the truck. Inside, it stinks, and it is horrible conditions for animals to be in. So in the back of the truck, there is a zebra, an antelope-looking thing. Percy never calls it an antelope, but I'm just going to call it an antelope. It's an antelope-looking thing, I think. And then a lion. So they get to the back of the truck. There's these. So the truck starts moving, so they cannot free the animals. So we also get a bit of a description of like the living area, and it's like they're living in filthy conditions. Also, the lion has been given a sack of turnips, and the zebra and antelope have meat. So the trio, before settling in themselves, they kind of sort out, like, they give the animals water, and they kind of sort out, like, the food situation. They give the turnips to the antelope and the zebra, and the meat to the lion. In the back of this truck, we actually get a bit more backstory. So it turns out Grover was the satyr that was supposed to bring Talia safely to camp. Luke and Annabeth were actually the two half-bloods that were with Talia when Grover found them. So the thing is that Grover was given specific orders to bring Talia to camp safely. Obviously, being like a child of Zeus, it was more dangerous for her out there. But Grover got really nervous, and so when they were he kind of like mixed up directions. So by the time they got to camp, the Furies had already caught up to them, and Talia told Grover to take Annabeth and Luke to camp, and she would hold the Furies off. Obviously, this is where she passed away and got turned into a tree, and Grover didn't get another assignment for 5 years, so Percy. Then after this conversation, obviously Grover's like blaming himself. He's like, I'm such a useless satyr. I'm not a good satyr. Of course, I find the most powerful demigods, and I failed them. But Annabeth kind of like, Grover, it wasn't your fault. But anyways, after this conversation, Grover goes to sleep. Which is like, it actually makes Percy and Annabeth laugh. Like, how can he do that so fast? So after Grover's asleep, Percy and Annabeth get to talking and bonding. Annabeth actually tells Percy that she actually did leave camp for a school year after summer one year, and she went back to her dad, but there were so many monster attacks, her stepmother just couldn't handle it, so she called Chiron before, she didn't even make it through the winter holidays. And so she calls Chiron and asks if she can come back to camp. So she goes back to camp, and she hadn't left since. So after this conversation, Annabeth actually also apologizes to Percy for what happened in the Tunnel of Love, and how she reacted with the spiders. She kind of explained to him about she didn't have to explain. Percy kind of also. So we get to know that Arachne was a weaver who was in a competition with Athena, and Arachne was a better weaver, but Athena got really mad and turned Arachne into a spider. And so now all of Arachne's children, so all the spiders, hate the Athena kids. So all the Athena kids are extremely afraid of spiders. It wasn't just like Annabeth being like scared of spiders or anything, because so then after this conversation kind of like goes back down, Annabeth goes to sleep, and Percy also goes to sleep, but he has a nightmare. In this nightmare, though, the voice in the pit isn't talking to him. It's kind of like Percy's like eavesdropping on a conversation. The voice in the pit is actually talking to someone, and Percy describes the voice as like it's kind of familiar, but he can't make out who it is. And the voice in the pit is talking to so the voice that's familiar to Percy is like I think he tells the voice in the pit that like the thing is like on its way to you. Wait, let me actually get the book for this. Also, I just noticed this in the book and I forgot to mention it. When they were on their way to the park, the water park, they stopped at this like it was a television and a screen. They saw Percy saw on the news that Gabe was giving an interview about like how Percy was such a troubled kid, and so this is a conversation from Percy's dream. And he suspects nothing? Wait. Okay. So this is where it starts. Percy Jackson, it said, yes, the exchange went well. I was back in the dark cavern. Spirits of the dead drifting around me, unseen in the pit, the monstrous thing was speaking. But this time it wasn't addressing me. The numbing power of its voice seemed directed somewhere else. And he suspects nothing? It asked. Another voice, one I almost recognized, answered at my shoulders, nothing, my lord. He is ignorant as the rest. He is as ignorant as the rest. I looked over, but no one was there. The speaker was invisible. Deception upon deception, the thing in the pit mused aloud. Excellent. Truly, my lord, said the voice next to me. You are well named the Crooked One. But was it really necessary? I could have brought you what I stole directly. You, the monster said in scorn, you have already shown your limits. You would have failed me completely had I not intervened. But my lord, peace, little servant. Our 6 months have brought us much. Zeus's anger has grown. Poseidon has played his most desperate card. Now we shall use it against him. Shortly you shall have the reward you wish and your revenge. As soon as both items are delivered into my hands. But wait, he is here. What? The invisible servant said, suddenly sounding tense. You summoned him, my lord? No, the voice, the full force of the monster's attention was now pouring over me, freezing me in place. Blast his father's blood, he is too changeable, too unpredictable. The boy brought himself hither. Impossible, the servant said. For a weakling such as you, perhaps, the voice snarled. Then its cold power turned back on me. So you wish to dream of your quest, young half-blood. Then I will oblige. After this dream, on to the next. So the truck actually has a stop in Vegas before it's supposed to stop in LA. And at the stop, the zebra actually asks Percy to free him and to just like unlock him. He will make his own way out. Because this is where the zebra is supposed to be dropped off in Vegas. This is actually where Percy learns he can talk to horses, and I guess zebras are close enough to horses, or they are horses? I'm not quite sure. But yeah, so Grover can talk to animals, but Percy can also talk to horses, probably because Poseidon made horses or something like that. So the trio actually work together and free all three of the animals. And that causes enough of a distraction that they get out of the truck and they said they're not going to travel in the truck anymore, obviously because like the people driving the truck would notice. And also, the truck was not legal. They were illegal smugglers, which actually made Grover very angry. Obviously, animals being treated bad. So before the animals actually left, Grover gave them like the blessing, something that they would make it to the wild. So the trio, they leave the truck. They're walking along Vegas looking for somewhere to like eat, maybe freshen up, and they land at the Lotus Casino. Now, when they're outside the casino, somebody like calls them in, like come inside, and like it gives them a credit card, and he's like, here you go, it's all paid for. Here's your room, and Percy's like, maybe he mistakes us for some millionaire's kid, but they go anyways. They go to their room, and it's so nice. It's 3 beds and a bunch of snacks, and so the trio they're able to like freshen up, and they take baths and they eat, and Percy actually throws away the Aries backpack. Here he's like, I'm just gonna buy another when we're leaving. Percy knows that there's something important he has to tell the group, but he can't remember what it is. And so they're kind of like, what's next? What should we do next? And Percy's obviously like, we go and play games. Percy and Grover, both of them, are like, we're gonna go play games at the casino with this unlimited credit card, because they each get a credit card. It's not just one, they each get a credit card. So they're playing games, and they're enjoying. Percy is playing this game, the shooting game, and this guy next to him is wearing the weirdest clothes. He's like so old. Percy describes him as looking like an Elvis impersonator. His name is Darren, and Percy actually decides to ask Darren what year he thinks it is. Darren's like, it's 1977. No, it's not. So this kind of like snaps Percy out of like the whatever is going on, and he's like, I need to go find Annabeth. He finds Annabeth. Annabeth is playing an architect game where she's kind of like building. She's making buildings, building buildings. So he kind of like snaps Annabeth out of her like whatever this trance is. They go and find Grover, and Grover's playing this like reverse hunter game where the animals hunt the people, I think. So they kind of like drag him after that too, and the people in the casino, the person who gave them the card was like, can I interest you in a platinum card? And Percy's like, no, we're leaving. And the person's like, such a shame. So the trio leave, and Percy immediately goes and checks if it's the same year. It is the same year, but also something looks different, and the weather has gotten worse. So the same newspaper, Percy looked at the newspaper to check the year, the same newspaper, and it said June 20th, the day before the solstice. They had been in the casino for 5 days. 5 whole days. It only felt like hours, but they had been in there for 5 whole days, and the deadline was tomorrow. That's stressful. But yeah, I think that is the end of, right, also, one last thing, when Percy leaves the casino, the Aries backpack magically reappears on his back, which is like, I thought I'd thrown him away. But anyways, so that is the end of chapter 16. Now on to chapter 17. Okay, so chapter 14, we shop for waterbeds. Now, after leaving the casino, they get a taxi, and they tell the taxi they need to go to the Santa Monica beach, and the taxi driver's like, that's kind of expensive, can you people afford that? And Annabeth hands him the Lotus Casino credit card, and it's like filled with money, and and she also tells the taxi driver that he can keep change, just get them to the beach fast. And he doesn't slow down. The money must have been good. But yeah, so in the taxi, they have a conversation. So in the taxi, the gang has a conversation. Percy tells them about his dream, and they're starting to suspect that maybe the lightning thief isn't Hades, and the voice in the pit doesn't seem like it would be Hades, you know? Yeah, so they have that conversation, and then they get to the beach, Percy goes underwater. He talks to the water spirit again, and she gives him 3 pearls. She gives him 3 pearls as a gift, and she tells him that you can use these when you need them, which is very lovely. And then she leaves. But before she leaves, she also tells Percy to not fall into any of Hades' tricks and to follow his heart. Listen to his heart and trust his heart. So Percy gets out, and then in LA, they are looking around for the DOA records, the entrance to the underworld, and they cannot for the life of them find it. I think this is where Percy actually sees Smelly Gabe on the news giving an interview about Percy and how troubled he is and how he's so worried about Sally and his car. Right, so they're on the streets. Then this gang of boys, human boys, jumps out at them, and so this Percy kind of distracts them for a second, so the trio runs, they scram, and these boys are running after them, so they go into the only open shop at the time around them, the first open shop that they find at this time, and it is Krusty's waterbed palace. So inside of Krusty's shop, they get to talking with Krusty, and Krusty's talking about beds. He's kind of showing Percy beds. Grover sits in one, and he kind of directs Annabeth to look, this bed would be good for you. And then he traps the 2 of them in the beds. Percy's there, we find out that Krusty is Procrustes, the stretcher, and he likes people to be exactly 6 foot. All of his beds are 6 foot, and if people do not fit in them, if they are too long, he will cut them off. And if they are too short, he will stretch them. At the moment, he is stretching Grover and Annabeth. So Percy kind of he knows that he needs to be smart here, and he kind of starts talking to Krusty and all that. And he eventually tricks Krusty into one of his own traps in his bed and kills Krusty. So he gets Percy and he gets Annabeth and Grover out of their traps, and Annabeth is you could have done that a little bit sooner. And Percy's you're kind of taller, and she's shut up. So there's that. Also, from Krusty's shop, they also got the address to DOA and a map, and also Percy took some drachmas. So that is where chapter 17 ends, and then on to chapter 18. Chapter 18, Annabeth does obedience school. So now at the DOA records, it's kind of it looks like a waiting room with a bunch of people in it, but Percy said that if he stared at the people too long, they were transparent. So everyone in that waiting room was dead. There's this guy sitting on this podium type thing, so they approach him, and they say, we need to go to the underworld. And he's he asks them how they died, and the 3 of them are we all drowned in a bathtub. And he's that must be a big bathtub. So Percy looks at his name tag, and it's Chiron? And the guy is no, Charon. Charon. You say it Charon. I am not Chiron. I am not that old centaur. But yeah, so Karen's kind of talking to them about how the dead to go to the underworld you need to pay, and the adults, they sometimes are smart enough to bring the fairy fair, but children, it's not very common to see children with it. And Percy's we can pay, and he gives him 3 drachmas, I think. And Karen's like, gold drachmas? I've never seen these before. And then he's like, hold on, are you dyslexic? And Percy's like, what? No, I'm not dyslexic. But Karen's like, you ain't dead, are you? Neither are you. You're them godlings. He doesn't say it like that. He's described to have like a British accent, but like as someone whose first language isn't British. I'm just making up voices. But yeah, so Karen is like, you people aren't dead. So he's like, I'm not going to take you people need to leave. But Percy's like, we really need to go, and starts like adding on more gold drachmas, and he wins over Karen. Karen's like, yeah, where you're going, you're just going to die anyway, so I'll take you. There's still room on the boat. So they get into a lift, and the lift ultimately turns into a boat, and they're gliding across the river Styx, which is made of lost hopes and dreams and all that. So they are dropped off in the underworld. They're there! But there are these 3 lanes to go there. There are people who are just going straight directly into Asphodel, the field of Asphodel, and then those who are like risking judgment, like will they get the field of punishment, or maybe even Elysium, or just the field of Asphodel. So the group's like, so the people who are going directly to the fields of Asphodel, they're passing under Cerberus's legs. Percy is like, I have a plan, and he pulls out a stick. He'd brought a bedpost from Krusty's, and he kind of tries to play with her. Cerberus doesn't care. So Cerberus is going to eat them. As he tells Grover that they have very little time, he's going to eat them. I think he says he has 10 seconds or 5 seconds. But Annabeth is like, wait, she pulls out from her backpack a squeaky red rubber ball, so I forgot to mention, but they actually raided the souvenir shop at the water park with like fresh clothes and everything, and Annabeth had added more stuff. So she got a red rubber ball out of the bag, which was from the water park ages ago. And so she kind of like squeaks it, and she kind of like, she plays with Cerberus, and Cerberus plays back. And this gives Percy and Grover enough time to pass through under Cerberus's legs. It's kind of like a small sad part where like Cerberus wants to play more with Annabeth after she's already passed, but she's like, I'll come back, I'll get you another ball, because Cerberus rips the ball. And he's kind of like, he's whining and everything. But yeah, so Annabeth kind of like very sadly ignores him, and also Percy asks like Annabeth where she learned how to do that, and she kind of like very sadly mentioned that before she ran away, her dad had like a Doberman, and all that. She's like very sad. So then they pass through the metal detectors, and alarms. They have triggered alarms. Also, something I forgot to mention, very funny moment. Karen complained about how little money he got. So one of the deals that he would take them to the underworld was Percy was supposed to ask Hades to give Karen a pay raise. So yeah, so that's where chapter 18 ends. Now it's time for chapter 19. Chapter 19, we find out the truth, sort of. So after the alarms, they kind of escape, and they hide behind this like tree trunk. Then they eventually, once like the main like guards and everything, they like pass them. They're going through the fields of Asphodel. Now, while they're moving through the field of Asphodel, we get to a little bit of a description of like souls. The souls are kind of like wandering around, and it's like they try to have a conversation with you, but then they know you can't understand them, so they just kind of like get sad and move away. And like the souls, they don't really have faces, but they will kind of like have this like angry or sad or confused expression. Right, so they're going through the fields of Asphodel, and suddenly Grover's shoes, they start like dragging him away, and they're dragging him towards a tunnel. So Percy and Annabeth, obviously, they try running after him and trying to grab him, and but he can't control it. Grover can't grab onto anything, yeah. So Grover can't find anything to grab onto, and the shoes are kind of like really dragging him. Percy and Annabeth run after him, and the shoes drag him into a tunnel. And at the end of the tunnel is a pit, the same pit that has been speaking to Percy in his dreams. And Grover can't grab onto anything. He also cannot. He isn't able to like bend over and take the shoes off or anything. But do you know what saves him? The fact that he has hooves. The shoes were always kind of loose on him, and his fake feet and the hooves. So one of them just kind of like slits. Grover's able to like grab onto this rock, and then one of them just slips off and then goes into the pit. And then this slows Grover down enough for him to like grab onto another rock, and then the other shoe also slips off and goes into a pit. If Grover had not been able to grab onto something, or the shoes hadn't left him, he would have been in the pit too. Yeah, so the entire gang, we're all rattled now. And with Percy and Grover, we're all rattled, but they slowly make their way. There's these huge gates that they then walk through. Nobody's really bothering them. Like there are guards everywhere, but skeleton guards, but nobody's really like doing anything. So they get to the door, they knock, it opens. They go inside, and it's a throne room. It's Hades' throne room, and Percy actually describes Hades as being like the first god, the third god he's met, but the first one who actually like looked like a god. And so I will read the description. He was the third god I'd met, but the first who really struck me as godlike. He was at least 3 meters tall for one thing, and dressed in black silk robes and a crown of braided gold. His skin was albino. His skin was albino white, his hair shoulder length and jet black. He wasn't bulked up like Ares, but he radiated power. He lounged on his throne and fused human bones looking and lounged on his throne of fused human bones looking lithe, graceful and dangerous as a panther. I immediately felt like he should be giving me orders. He knew more than I did. He should be at my master. Then I told myself to snap out of it. Hades' aura was affecting me just as Ares had. The Lord of the Dead resembled pictures I'd seen of Adolf Hitler or Napoleon or the terrorist leaders who direct suicide bombers. Hades had the same intense eyes, the same kind of mesmerizing evil charisma. Okay, so we get that description of Hades, and he's like, "You're brave for coming here, son of Poseidon, after what you've done." And Percy's like, "What have I done to you?" So Percy kind of like asks him, "What have I done to you?" And he's like, Hades is like, "You stole my helmet." And this is where we find out that Hades' helmet of darkness, a very powerful weapon, is also missing. He just hadn't like advertised it being stolen because nobody was going to care, because these people they won't do anything. And then if word got out that it would be bad. So Percy's like, "I didn't steal anything," and now he's kind of getting annoyed because everyone's accusing him of stealing something. Also, I forgot to mention this, but as soon as he got to the underworld, Percy mentioned that like he thought he was really tired. The bag started getting heavier, especially after chasing Grover to the pit. Hades was like, "You dare lie to me, you have the lightning bolt in your bag." Percy says, "No, I don't." But then he was like, "Oh, it's been so heavy, what if?" So he opens the bag, and the lightning bolt is inside. That gives like Percy a thought. So Hades was like, well, you're already here with the lightning bolt, and since it's already here, I'm just gonna take that from you because if a war is coming, this will be very valuable to me. You give that to me, and I'll give you your mother. Hades has Percy's mother, wonderful Sally Jackson, encased in like a gold thingy. So apparently, Hades had snapped her there right before the Minotaur had crushed her. So Percy's like so happy to see his mother. And when he sees his mother he sees Hades, he's kind of contemplating like, I should like use the pearls and save my mother. As if reading his mind, Hades is like, you only have, show me the pearls. He takes out the pearls, he only has 3 pearls. Hades is like, you only have 3 pearls. You know it's 1 use per person, right? Like, and then, you know, Percy's like, oh man. Also, Percy is like, uncle, wouldn't you want a war to expand your kingdom? And Hades goes on an entire rant, which I will read. I think this is also, right, so this also happens before Percy knows that he has the lightning bolt. Okay. Return my helmet now, or I will stop death. Hades threatened. Or I will stop death, Hades threatened. This is my counter-proposal. I will open the earth and have the dead pour back into the world. I will make your lands a nightmare, and you, Percy Jackson, your skeleton, will lead my army out of Hades. The skeletal soldiers all took 1 step forward, making their weapons ready. At that point, I probably should have been terrified. The strange thing was, I felt offended. Nothing gets me angrier than being accused of something I didn't do. I've had a lot of experience with that. You're as bad as Zeus, I said. You think I stole from you? That's why you sent the Furies after me? Of course, Hades said. And the other monsters? Hades' lip curled. Oh, wait. I'm on the wrong page. But I'll finish it anyways. Hades' lip curled. I had nothing to do with that. I wanted no quick death for you. I wanted you brought before me alive, as so you might face every torture in the fields of punishment. Why do you think I let you enter my kingdom so easily? Easily? Return my property, but I don't have your helmet. I came for the Master Bolt. Which you already possess, Hades shouted. You came here with it, little fool, thinking you could threaten me. But I didn't. Open your pack then. A horrible feeling struck me. The weight in my backpack like a bowling ball. It couldn't be. Right, so this was when Percy found out he had the thing. Okay, now this is Hades' little tangent. Uncle, I said, you keep saying after what I've done. What exactly have I done? The throne room shook with a tremor so strong they probably felt it upstairs in Los Angeles. Debris fell from the cavern ceiling. Doors burst open all along the walls, and skeletal warriors marched in, hundreds of them, from every time period and nation in Western civilization. They lined the perimeter of the room, blocking the exits. Hades bellowed, Do you think I want war, Godling? You are the Lord of the Dead, I said carefully. A war would expand your kingdom, right? A typical thing for my brother to say. Do you think I need more subjects? Do you not see the sprawl of asphodel? Well, have you any idea how much my kingdom has swollen in this past century alone? How many subdivisions I've had to open? I opened my mouth to respond, but Hades was on a roll now. More security ghouls, he moaned. Traffic problems at the Judgment Pavilion. Double overtime for the staff. I used to be a rich god, Percy Jackson. I control all the precious metals under the earth, but my expenses. Karen wants a pay raise, I blurted out, just remembering the fact. As soon as I said it, I wish I could sew up my mouth. Don't get me started on Karen, Hades yelled. He's been impossible ever since he discovered the Italian suits. Problems everywhere, and I've got to handle all of them personally. Commute time alone from the palace to the gates is enough to drive me insane. And the dead just keep arriving? No, godling. I need no help getting subjects. I did not ask for this war. So that was Hades' tangent. Then after this, there's that moment that I just read before this, about like, you have the lightning bolt. So then after there's like 3 pearls, Hades is like, either you'd have to leave one of your friends down here, or you give me the lightning bolt and I will not kill you. And I think he also said, I'll give you a minute. I think he said, he says something. There's like, give me the lightning bolt. So either you have to leave, either leave one of your friends here with me, or take my offer. Grover's like, don't take his offer, and Percy knew he's not going to give Hades the lightning bolt, but now he had a dilemma. Grover was like, I'm a useless satyr, leave me here, I will stay here, save your mother, take Annabeth, get the bolt to Zeus. Annabeth is like, no, I'm willing to go down fighting, I can stay here. Grover's like, I don't have a soul like you people. He can just torture me until I die and I'll turn into a flower or something. And Annabeth is like, no, I can stay, I can fight. I'm willing to go down fighting. Percy is like, none of you are staying here. He looks at us. Hello. So does it seem like it's hours later? It's not hours later, but it might be like an hour or half an hour later, because my phone died mid-filming and didn't tell me. So where were we? So we were at Grover and Annabeth both volunteering to take Percy's place, and I think the last thing I said was Percy looked at. Okay, so Percy looked at his mother and was like, I promise I'll come back for you. Looked at Hades, and then he was like, I will get your helmet back. Also give Karen a raise, and play with Cerberus sometime. Like, come on. So he says that then our trio smashes their the pearls. They smash the pearls, and they get back to the surface. So they're out of the underworld. They're out of the underworld, and it is time for Percy to confront the god who betrayed them, which also he kind of like figured it out while they were in the underworld. And that is the end of chapter 19. So on to chapter 20. Chapter 20, I battle my jerk relative. Okay, so they're back at the surface, and I think they land in the bay, and then the Coast Guard or something drops them off at the pier, the Santa Monica pier. And guess who's waiting for them? Can you guess? It's Ares. It's Ares. Ares is the one who betrayed them. Also, I'm sorry if there's like really loud sounds in the back. I don't know how much is coming in the video. Okay, so Ares is the one who betrays them. This guy right here, the one who gave them the backpack. Right, so he's there waiting for them, and Percy's like real mad now. He's like, Ares. But yeah, so he goes and confronts Ares, and this is where we find out what the actual plan was. So we find out what Ares' plan actually was. Ares' plan was that Percy would die in the underworld. That Hades would kill Percy for stealing his helmet. No, I think the plan was Percy would die in the underworld, and then Poseidon would be mad at Hades that Percy died, right? And then Zeus and Poseidon are already fighting, because, and then Hades would be mad at both of them because his helmet is still missing. His helmet of darkness is still missing, and he doesn't know which one of them has it. And also, Zeus would be mad at Hades because Hades would have the lightning bolt, because Percy would have taken it down there. So that was Ares' plan. Throughout all this, Percy gets this feeling that, you're not smart enough to come up with this. I don't think this was actually your idea. And Ares is like, of course it's my idea. And then Percy's like, then why wouldn't you keep the lightning bolt for yourself and overthrow your father? And then Ares is like, yeah, why wouldn't I? And it's kind of like he's in a daze for a second, but then he snaps out of it and he's like, because this is so much bigger and war and stuff. Getting other people to do it. I don't know. He has some kind of excuse. So that's that. Although Percy's like so sure that it was not Ares' idea to do all this and that something is controlling him. So Percy makes Ares mad, and then Ares actually creates a boar to kill Percy. But Percy kills the boar pretty quickly. Was it a boar? I think it was a boar. So then Percy's like, why don't you fight me yourself? And Ares is like, I'm a god and you're a child. And then Percy's like, yeah, I think you're just scared. So Ares is like, okay, fine. How do you want to do this? And it's kind of like, Percy kind of like raises Riptide and is like, oh, one-on-one combat. Annabeth is like, don't do this, Percy. He's a god. But Percy's like, no, I'm gonna do this. So Annabeth gives Percy her necklace with the Campapla beads and her father's ring for good luck. And Grover, oh man, best buddies these two. Grover gives Percy a crushed tin can that he'd been saving as a snack for a while. I know, right? Just need a friend like this guy. So then, Ares and Percy, they're battling it out. And Percy's kind of losing because Ares seems to be able to anticipate all of Percy's moves before he can even strike. And that's like probably because he's the god of war and very good at battles. But yeah, Percy, he's trying to get to the water because it's right there, but Ares is kind of blocking him. Now, while all of this is happening, police cars have been gathering by the beach, and they kind of like tell what they see because of the mist. Have I mentioned the mist yet? The mist is something that it's kind of like humans will see what they want to see, so the mist kind of like helps with that. The mist kind of like helps humans understand, like it kind of like changes their perception, like monsters aren't real and all that. So like humans will, so like Ares's sword to them looks like a gun, because why would people be sword fighting on the beach? So the police cars on the beach kind of tell Ares and Percy to put down the guns. But Ares is like, no, and he kind of explodes all of the police cars. This is enough of a distraction to give Percy a bit of an advantage, and he gets to the water. He kind of builds pressure in the water, and then as soon as Ares turns around, he kind of blasts Ares with the water. And this disorientates him enough that Percy is able to slash his heel. And Ares starts to bleed golden blood, the blood of the gods, Iker. And so Ares is like super mad about this, and it looks like he's about to like kill Percy. But then there's this like very weird moment where time kind of stops and it gets colder and something goes on, and Ares doesn't kill Percy. He changes his mind. He does curse Percy. I should read the curse actually. You have made an enemy, godling, he told me. You have sealed your fate every time you raise your blade in battle, every time you hope for success. You will feel my curse. Beware, Percy Jackson, beware. With that, Ares reveals his true self. Obviously, Percy has to look away, and then he's gone. Leaving behind Hades' helmet. Because Ares had that. Also, kind of to explain how Percy got the bolt but never noticed, is Ares had enchanted the backpack, and it was kind of like how Anaclumos Riptide returns to Percy's pocket. As soon as Percy was like close to Tartarus, the pit, close to or in the underworld, the lightning bolt, the master bolt, would return to the backpack. So that's how he didn't have it until he had it. And Ares explained it in like, if anything failed, he would still have the weapon. If Percy died, it wouldn't matter, because he would still have the lightning bolt, and that's why he didn't it didn't return to the bag until he was in the underworld. And so the Helmet of Darkness is now on the beach, and mid-fight between Ares and Hades, Ares and Percy, the Furies, Mrs. Dodds, she had started circling above, and so after the fight, she was like, Percy, I saw everything. And Percy's like, here, take the helmet, tell Hades the truth, and tell him to stop the war. Mrs. Dodds says something to him about hero stuff, and next time I see you, I'll kill you. And then she leaves, and now the gang has to get the lightning bolt back to Zeus, because once they got out of the underworld, it was the morning of the solstice. So yeah, so it is the day of the solstice now, and they need to get the lightning bolt back to Zeus before he starts a war. And that is the end of chapter 20. We will move on to chapter 21. Chapter 21, I settle my tab. So obviously the police had gathered by the park, beach, and so after everything, the mist is able to convince the police and everyone that what had actually been happening this entire book, because they thought Percy was a terrorist or something. They actually in their brains it changed to Percy, along with Annabeth and Grover, had been kidnapped by Ares, and they'd been kidnapped by Ares, and Ares was the one who had flipped the car, and Ares and people on the bus, they started oh yeah, did I not remember that guy in the leather jacket was definitely on the bus, and and it was it was Ares who blew a hole in the gateway arch, because a 12-year-old couldn't do that. So remember, Percy is 12. These two are 12. Also, Grover, I never told his age, but he's actually, I think, 28. But satyrs age slower than humans. So Percy always described him as looking like he failed high school, failed the class a few times, because he already had I think a beard coming in or something like that. Stubbly. I think stubbly chin is how Percy described Grover. Right. So now they're with the police, and it's a 12-year-old couldn't do that. And then the beach incident was explained brave Percy Jackson. Brave Percy Jackson had stolen one of the kidnappers' guns and decided to fight back and free him, Annabeth, and Grover, and so that's how they were playing it. And there was so much sympathy for them that they actually raised enough money to get 3 plane tickets to back to New York to go to the Empire State Building. Did I mention this before? But Olympus is on top of the Empire State Building, the 600th floor. Yeah, so why are they flying? It's because they have a deadline. They will risk it to get to Zeus in time so that there's no war. So they raise airplane tickets and then they fly down. Once they land in the airport, Percy tells them they should separate, just in case Zeus kills him. Somebody needs to know the truth, so he sends Grover and Annabeth back to camp to tell Chiron what happened, and to tell Chiron the truth about everything that happened, and so they didn't want to separate, but Percy was like, "I need to do this alone." So he gets a taxi to back to Manhattan and then to the Empire State Building. In the Empire State Building, there's a man sitting there, and Percy's like, "I need to go to the 600th floor," and the man's like, "There's no such thing." And Percy's like, the man's reading a book, which I think this is a nod to Harry Potter. I'm not quite sure, but he's reading a book with a wizard on the front, not the lizard. He's reading a book with a wizard on the front. But then Percy's like, "I need an audience with Zeus," and then the guy's like, you need an appointment to talk to Zeus. Surprise visits." But Percy's like, he shows him the bag with the lightning bolt inside, and says, "Oh, here's a key card." And so Percy goes to the lift in the Empire State Building, scans it. There's an extra button that appears on top. He clicks it, 600th floor. We're in Olympus now, Mount Olympus. I think I'm gonna read the description for this because it's actually pretty cool. From the top of the clouds rose the decapitated peak of the mountain, its summit covered with snow. Climbing to the mountainside were dozens of multi-leveled palaces, a city of mansions, all with white-columned porticos. I don't know what that is. Gilded terraces and bronze braziers, glowing with 1,000 fires. Roads wound crazily up to the peak where the largest palace gleamed against the snow. Precariously perched gardens bloomed with olive trees and roses. I could make out an open-air market filled with colorful tents and stone amphitheater. And a stone amphitheater built on one side of the mountain, a hippodrome and a coliseum on the other side. Oh, on the other. There's no side. It was an ancient Greek city, except it wasn't in ruins. It was new and clean and colorful, the way Athens must have looked 2,500 years ago. This palace can't be here, I told myself. The tip of the mountain hanging over New York City like a billion-ton asteroid. How could something like that be anchored above the Empire State Building, in plain sight of millions of people, and not get noticed? But here it was, and here I was. My trip through Olympus was a daze. I passed some giggling wood nymphs who threw olives at me from their garden. Hawkers in the market offered to sell me ambrosia on a stick and a new shield and a genuine glitter weave replica of the Golden Fleece as seen on Hephaestus TV. The 9 muses were tuning their instruments for a concert in the park, while a small crowd gathered, satyrs and naiads and a bunch of good-looking teenagers who might have been minor gods and goddesses. Nobody seemed worried about an impending civil war. In fact, everybody seemed in a festive mood. Several of them turned to watch me pass and whisper to themselves. Right, so we're in Olympus now. Percy goes to the throne room, where Zeus and Poseidon are already sitting there and talking. And Percy goes and bows to his father. And Zeus is like, shouldn't you be bowing to the master of the room? And Poseidon's like, don't worry, brother. Like, he's gonna bow to his father. But yeah, so they have that little conversation. Percy tells Zeus everything that happened, and gives him the lightning bolt. And when it's brought up that like why would Ares do this, Percy's like, I don't think Ares was the one who came up with the idea. I think it was like something else, the thing in the pit. Poseidon and Zeus actually have a conversation in ancient Greek, and all Percy could make out after the conversation was father. And then Zeus declares the matter closed. They're not going to talk about this anymore. He says he's going to go wash his lightning bolt because it has human essence on it. And then he leaves, and he says, Percy, because you brought my lightning bolt back, I'm not going to blast you to smithereens. But if I come back and you're still here, you're dead. Also, stay out of the sky. If you fly again, I'll also blast you out of the sky. Zeus leaves. Poseidon and Percy have like a little conversation where Poseidon's actually like, your mother's been returned home. Hooray, Sally's home. And she was returned after Hades got his helmet back. He also like talks about like how Sally is like a goddess among, it's like a queen amongst women and humans, I think. Let me just. Your mother is a queen amongst women, Poseidon said wistfully. I had not met such a mortal woman in 1,000 years. Still, I am sorry you were born, child. I have brought you a hero's fate, and a hero's fate is never happy. It is never anything but tragic. That kind of hurts Percy. But, you know, it's fine. Poseidon also tells him that when he gets home, there'll be a package-wear thing on his bed. A package-wear thing for him, and he also kind of like says like the sea doesn't like to be restrained, you know? And whatever decision he makes, to remember that he is his son, that Percy is Poseidon's son, and that he is proud of what he has done. And with that, he sends Percy home. When Percy gets home, Sally's there. Sally meets him outside. She is absolutely thrilled. She doesn't remember anything past the Minotaur, but as soon as she got home, Gabe was not happy to see her. He had to return her life insurance money, but also he sent her back to work to make up for the month's missing money, which we hate Gabe. But anyways, once they got inside, Gabe was really upset to see Percy, and like he told Percy he needs to leave. There was also a moment where Percy realized that Gabe had been hitting his mother. He didn't know when it had happened, how many times it had happened, but he knew it had happened. He got so mad in that moment, he pulled out Riptide. Even though Riptide is made of celestial bronze and can't actually harm mortals, or humans, can't harm humans. But he still pulled it out. But Sally kind of like pushed Percy into his room, you know, so nothing happens. Once in the room, a package appears on Percy's bed, and it is Medusa's head. The package he had sent to Olympus many chapters ago. It was on his bed, and Percy kind of asked his mother, like, I can take care of Gabe if you want me to, you know, one look in this box and he won't be a problem anymore. And his mother's like, I don't need you, you're like your father in that sense. He offered to make me a palace under the water. I do not need you to fight my battles for me, and I can handle it myself. But Percy kind of just like leaves that as an option. They also discuss what Percy's gonna do. If he's gonna stay throughout the summer, he could go to work with Sally, just like give her company there. But Percy says he's gonna go back to Camp Half-Blood for the summer and then decide whether he's gonna be there year round or if he's actually gonna come home for school. And so as Percy is leaving, because Gabe's not gonna let him stay, as Percy is leaving to go back to camp, his mother gives him this sort of look that like kind of like tells him that she's gonna be okay because she's gonna take care of herself. She gave Gabe that kind of look that that told Percy that she's going to be okay. And that is the end of chapter 21. And now we're going to go on to the last chapter, chapter 22. I'll see you in a bit. Chapter 22, the prophecy comes true. Back at camp, Annabeth and Percy, they burned their burial shrouds that their cabins had made, just in case they didn't return. Annabeth's was a beautiful one woven with owls on it. Because Percy didn't have any cabin mates, the Aries cabin had made his, and they just painted smiley faces on a bed sheet with the eyes X'd out. So they burned the shrouds, then they had like this feast, and they got to wear laurels and stuff. And yeah, they had like a celebration of a successful quest. A week after Percy had been back at camp, he got a letter from Sally that Gabe had mysteriously disappeared off the face of the earth. Where was Gabe? He had mysteriously disappeared off the face of the earth. And Sally had sold her first and only life-size statue. And she sold it for so much money that she was able to put a down payment on another apartment in New York, like a new one. And she was also able to pay first semester's tuition, I think, for NYU. She was going back to get a degree. She said that she's not going to be making any more statues because she's going to work on her book style. So happy ending there. But she also in the letter asked Percy if he had made his decision on whether or not he was coming home during the school year or not. And Percy didn't answer that. And so we are going through the summer. 4th of July, there are fireworks, they're beautiful. The Hephaestus cabin, they'd outdone themselves. Grover gets his searcher's license, and he is leaving to go search for Pen. The gang has their goodbye on the 4th of July. And Percy says that Grover's he looks more grown up. He's even gotten horns in, so he doesn't have to wear a hat anymore. No. He has to wear a hat full time now to hide his horns because they show. And so Grover's off, gonna go look for Pen now. So they had a wonderful goodbye. Percy was slightly worried about Grover. Both of them, Annabeth and Percy, were kind of worried about Grover going off to search for Pen. They were he's gonna be the first searcher to find Pen and come back alive. So the rest of the summer goes by. Percy still isn't able to answer his mother, and he's been thinking about his quest. Something still doesn't feel right. The prophecy lines have all come true. Go west and find the god who had turned. Instead of Hades, it was Ares. To find what was lost and see it return. The lightning bolt. A friend, be betrayed by one who calls you friend. That one, Percy was it has to be Ares because he had pretended to be their friend and then betrayed them. And then the last line, and failed to save what matters most in the end. His mother. He hadn't been the one to save her, she'd saved herself in a way from Gabe, but the prophecy had come true. So it's the last day of camp now. Percy still hasn't answered his mother. He gets a letter from Mr. D, and it was Dear Peter Johnson, if you decide you want to be year-round, inform somebody, and if you cannot stay here without telling anyone, the cleaning harpies will eat anyone who's unauthorized to be there. If you don't tell anyone that you're going to be a year-round camper, and the cleaning harpies will eat you. So that's fun. So he decides that he's going to clear his mind. The campgrounds are very empty because, campers are packing or have left. So he decides he's gonna sword fight. It looks like Luke had the same idea, and Luke's there too. And Luke kind of asks him if, like, do you want to go to the forest one last time to fight, to see if we can find something to fight? And Percy's like, yeah, sure, I guess. He also notices that Luke has a new sword. It's actually a different type of sword. It's a double-edged. It's half silver, I think, and half celestial bronze, so it can hurt everyone. And that kind of like strikes Percy as odd. Like, why would you want to hurt like mortals, like humans, unnecessarily? But you know, it's a cool sword. Also, Percy kind of like wants to go with Luke because he thought Luke was mad at him for all the attention he was getting after a successful quest. Also, Luke had a can of Coca-Cola, which obviously the goblets at the dining hall would give you Coca-Cola, but if you asked for them, but Percy was like, it never tasted as good as canned one. Also, I just realized that I never actually explained anything about blue food because, so blue food is something that's special between like Sally and Percy, and in the books it says Sally eats blue food because one time Gabe was like, that doesn't exist, so she started making everything in blue, and she works at the candy store. She worked at the candy store, and she would always bring Percy back some like blue candy. Right. So Percy and Luke go to the forest to find something to kill, and they get to the creek where Percy had broken Clarice's spear, and there. Luke's kind of acting kind of suspicious, you know? And then he summons a scorpion from the ground. Luke summons a pit scorpion. Big reveal time. Luke's the lightning thief. Yeah. He's also the one who summoned the Hellhound to camp and also leaked that there was a war about to start between these two. You know, Luke stole... So, what happened was, Luke always hated the gods. Then he went on his quest, and his father wanted an apple from, like a golden apple, I think, and Percy's like, that's great, why would you be mad? Hercules did it too, but Luke was like, yeah, but what's the point of repeating somebody's glory, you know? And he was so uninterested in the quest that a dragon protecting the tree woke up, gave him his scar, because Luke has like a massive scar on his face. And he was very mad at the gods after that. Once he came back from his failed quest, he started getting dreams from Kronos, their father. Which, at this point, we know that Kronos is the voice in the pit, the one who's been talking to Percy, but obviously Zeus closed the matter, so they can't talk about it. So Kronos has been talking to Luke, and so at the winter solstice, when Cap Haplet had field trip up to Olympus, when everyone was asleep, Luke stole the helmet and the bolt, and he'd escaped, but he hadn't gotten very far before he was discovered, and Ares caught him. But he managed to actually convince Ares, with the help of Kronos, to like start this big war and make it think that it was Ares' idea and all that. Yeah. And so Luke is the lightning thief. Percy's like, you're being used by the gods, and he's like, it's time for the new golden age. And with that, he leaves Percy with the pit scorpion, slashes with his sword, and escapes into the darkness. The pit scorpion bites Percy, and the venom spreads fast. Percy barely makes it back to the big house. The tree spirits had to help him get there. Then he's unconscious. When he wakes up, Karen's around him, Annabeth is around him, and Karen asks him what happened, and he tells them it's Luke. Luke's the lightning thief. Annabeth is so sad, devastated, because they were of course close. They were, but she was like, it makes sense, he was never the same after his quest. And Karen's like, I need to go to Olympus and tell them about this update. Percy, you need to stay here and also make a decision about what you're gonna do. Are you gonna stay here? Percy says that he felt like Karen wanted him to stay so he could train. But anyways, so that happens. Now, Annabeth is going home for the summer. She took Percy's advice. She's trying again, and she is waiting at the top of her family's waiting at the top of the hill, and she goes. And then Percy also kind of looks back at the camp, and he decides, I'm gonna go home for the school year. I'm gonna be back next summer, and when I'm back, we're gonna catch Luke. And that is the end of book 1. Wonderful book, right? Quite the plot twist, this one. I didn't see it coming when I was reading it. But yeah, I actually had a lot of fun doing this. I also want to do it with other videos, but hopefully by the time I film the other videos, I'll have my tripod, my little stand, because the setup is wild. But yeah, I had fun doing this. Thank you for watching, and I will see you next time.